I'm good, thanks. You?
Thank you so much. I think this is my better side. So, just going to grab some water.
Oh, I'll have some of that as well,
yes.
actually.
There you go.
So I'm not Ali Hannon, but I'm Debbie Tembo, and I'm the Partnerships Director at Creative Equals. We are a global inclusion consultancy, and we put inclusivity, diverse representation, and equity at the heart of the strategic work that we do with brands. I'm really excited to be joined by Aisha Jakura, the head of brands for George at Asda. And I really liked what the previous speaker actually said about data is people, because this conversation, I think, leans into people a lot more. So Aisha has held a number of various marketing roles in the Asda business over the last 2 years before being appointed to the head of brands. And she's really been instrumental in driving the evolution of the George at Asda brand. And she's here to really share with us how she has bucked the trend of the old school formula around how you create ads and how you put inclusivity at the heart of advertising. And so Aisha is smart, she's spunky, and she's a very inspiring leader, and I can't wait for her to share with us some of her insights. So there's a lot of talk at the moment, Aisha, around brands, brand purpose, and values. And so could you share with us how your team, you and your team, have led the George brand with values at the forefront and what those are?
Sure. And first of all, thank you so much, Debbie. It's lovely to be here today. And I want to warn the audience, there's going to be a lot of opinions thrown at you, just about my kind of lived experience. So on that, in my career, throughout all of it, I've worked in and with big agencies and big networks. And during that time, it didn't matter which agency or network I was with, they did things the same way. There was what I refer to as a bit of an old school formula. And this is the old lady in me, but going back 15 years-ish and starting out my career, I can safely say there was a kind of fully fledged old boys network at play. Mm-hmm. And as you kind of went further up the agency, you know, there was kind of the same gatekeepers everywhere you went. And I remember myself as a young Asian woman, supremely unconnected, knew no one, really poor background, coming into that world, throwing Muslim as well, coming into that world and being kind of like, first in awe, and then a little bit shocked and kind of unsettling, I think I felt. And the reason for that was one thing, which was, it wasn't inclusive, of course, but also people seem to kind of widely accept this really bad behavior. Mm-hmm. And especially if people were deemed like talented. It was like kind of encouraged, you know, it was riled on and you were told to kind of pipe down and let those people come to the forefront. And I remember even back then, I thought, when I'm in charge, things are gonna be different. You know, I was like, I'm gonna sort this thing out. So back to, I guess, 2 years ago, I got what was my dream job in the business. I'd been there a while, the opportunity to lead the brand. And the first thing I did, because it was a newly formed team, was, as everyone would have done, you know, like loads of listening with the team to find out what mattered to them. And then from that, I developed around the values, a mantra, I guess. And there was loads of stuff in there, the usual stuff. But there was two things, I think, that really game changed for me, my journey, and the team. And one of them was representation matters. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of talk, you know, everyone's like, yeah, it really matters. And it was kind of came up a lot in the listening. So my question back then was, okay, so what are we going to do about it? So I'm empowering you. Talk to me. What do you want to do? And then the second thing was no divas and no dickheads. Now, on that one, it was basically, we're not only going to care about what we put out there, but we're also going to really care about how we do it and who we do it with. Mm-hmm. And that applied to us as well, by the way. We can be those divas. So that kind of approach, I think, really had a massive, profound effect, actually. And you can see that, I hope, in the subsequent work.
Yeah, you absolutely can. And actually, I love those values. I think I might actually take that.
It's kind of simple, but it works.
Take that away. And I also love how you put the responsibility of those values, not just on yourself and the team, but also the partners. that you work with, and that actually they've got to carry those values through into the creative process.
Yeah, we don't care how good you are.
Yeah, absolutely. So I love that. And just actually talking about that creative process, I just wondered if you could talk us through, with the Phenomenal campaign, for example, that was a campaign, or is a campaign, that really challenges the stereotypes around femininity. And I just wondered how the values actually played out in the creative and the production process when you were developing the campaign.
Yeah, I think because of what we put in place, I think it meant we started to reject assumed ways of doing things. We didn't kind of, even to this day, like I think we decided, we weren't just going to do it the way it's always been done. And I think that's where we started from. Now, the flip side of that is not that we thought, oh my God, we're it. We know exactly what to do. Actually, it was extremely humbling because we almost started from a place which was, we really don't know it all. And that got us serious about collaboration. And I don't use that word lightly, and I think it's thrown around quite a bit. But actually, if you think about it, it's quite a humbling thing to collaborate. It's quite a generous thing because you have to admit you don't know anything. And also, you're going to bring in smart, brilliant people who are better than you to help you learn. So you're going to constantly learn. So I think that's where we started with it. And casting is probably the first place we started, because that was about in front of the camera. And even now, we don't subscribe to a template. We don't tick boxes. We genuinely have open briefs, and we broadened our reach in terms of not the usual agencies would go to. We have a lot of non-models, and ultimately work with casting directors that are kind of well known for their approach in inclusivity. And I think that started to change the game. And then the other thing we did was we're very open and transparent about our intentions and work with diverse communities. So our Back to School ad, which we're so proud of, we just won an award for as well, that script kind of came in with, we want rap music. And I'm a massive old school, like R&B 90s, I know it all kind of thing. And I was like, you know what, actually maybe I don't know what's kind of that cool now, even though I think I am pretty cool. We reached out to people that work in that genre of music. And then that led to drill, but actually these people, this is what they do day in, day out. And it wasn't just a tick box. We're like, no, come on the journey with us. And then even behind the camera, that's when we started to go, okay, actually the team that needs to make this needs to live this. And we saw huge success with that. And that kind of carried on. And then for Christmas, we did a Slate campaign. And the insight for that was the LGBTQ community were really, quite a huge proportion of that community were really fearful of going home for Christmas because they couldn't be who they wanted to be. So when we saw that insight, it resonated with the team, of course, and then we reached out to our charity partners, diversity role models, who have fantastic links with the community, which was meant to be a conversation. They ended up having a credit on the campaign because they stayed with us again on the journey, so the behind the scenes. And then Phenomenal, same thing. We knew it was a female-oriented campaign, so we went out of our way. It takes work. I think it takes a lot of energy, and found an all-female team and an agency who does work in the space, so CPB, who are doing a whole campaign, like going global a little bit with the Break the Bias piece. It wasn't just about the front of the camera. It started to kind of we got momentum, I guess, and it started going behind as well.
I love how it's throughout that creative process that you actually looked at how can we be inclusive throughout the creative process to get better representation. And I think that there are a lot of brands that really struggle with that. And so I love that concept that you're talking about, collaboration as an act of generosity. And actually as a brand, just realizing that you don't know what you don't know. And therefore you've really got to lean into the people that do know and that can help you on that process. And so working with partners and creative agencies and actually people outside of the norm, because going back to your first, your first point around when you started this journey in your career, nobody looked like you. There wasn't great representation, and it was kind of that old school boys club. So I really love how you've taken that lived experience and gone, actually, I'm going to try and change it in the work that I do and in something like the creative process. So well done you on doing that.
Still a journey. We are not getting it all right.
So just turning a little bit to focusing on fashion brands in particular. There's a lot of talk about the future of fashion brands, a lot of talk around circular economies and, sustainability. What do you see as the future for fashion brands when it comes to inclusivity, diverse representation, and what that means for the consumer journey?
I think it's just so important, and I think crucial, because whether we really think about it in this kind of philosophical way, what we're doing is putting stuff out there, so we're contributing to culture. Mm-hmm. And I genuinely think, just taking up that space as a brand, like we need to have an element of responsibility to what I call normalize actual normal. Because that's what the world is. It is pretty diverse. There is a lot going on out there. So I think we definitely have a responsibility to do that. And I find it epically mind-blowing when people say things like, well, that's going to alienate our core customer.
Yeah.
And I get that. Of course, I don't want to diminish that, but I just think that your customer can see other people. They live in the real world, actually. They can see all kinds of people. Like, I think they'll be okay. I think we've got a huge responsibility, and I think we need to do a lot more in that space, actually.
Yeah. And what's the future of George at Asda? What are you thinking? What are your plans?
Oh my God, I'm not allowed to tell you the guys that. We've got loads coming up. It's going to be in a similar vein, but of course, we want to keep elevating. So
okay.
We've got a lot going on there.
I think, we've got a little bit of time to... Do you want to talk about a bit of the pitfalls? Like, what gets in the way of brands doing it right? Because sometimes they get it so wrong. I just got a message about a particular brand that got something really wrong around the gender space and with female representation. And when I clicked on the BBC link about an hour ago, it said page no longer available. So they got it really wrong.
Yeah.
So
someone's made some calls.
What do you think gets in the way of brands getting it right?
I mean, it's such a hard question in some ways because my personal opinion on this is I think if you're trying to start from a place where you're trying to make a statement, you're trying to politicize your comms, I think then you need to check your intent, actually. Because if you're doing that for purely commercial gain or you're trying to tick a box, guess what? They're going to see through that, and I think you'll get into some level of trouble, probably.
Yeah, so authenticity is really important when it comes to inclusivity.
I think it's intent, actually. Yeah, it's a lot around that, for sure.
Yeah. Agreed. So finally, to wrap up, we get at Creative Equals, for example, we get a lot of brands coming to us. They're at different stages in their sort of inclusivity and diverse representation journey. So what advice would you give to your fellow marketing peers around, how to get it right and how to approach this and how to lead from the front?
I think what worked for me was knowing it starts with you. And I think it's such a moment of brutal honesty, and it's about your self-awareness. You need to look in the mirror and you need to really ask yourself the question, do you really get it? And also accept that maybe you don't, and that's okay, because someone on your team will, someone in your business might, and oh my God, if you're in that situation where maybe that's not possible, bloody outsource it, because there is people out there that are willing to help.
Yeah.
And I think that's worked wonders for us, actually. We've been very open with our intent. We've put our hands up and said, we don't quite know, can you come and help us? And people are so willing to do that. Mm-hmm. And I think the other part is, I don't think there's any such thing as safe marketing anymore. I don't think you can sit on a fence, try not to offend anyone, because people find that bloody offensive now. They're like, oh my God, this person's not active. Yeah. So I think you have to have a point of view, whether you like it or not. And I think mostly, it's such a rewarding journey. Like, just do it, just start, have pure intentions, and mostly enjoy it, I'd say.
I love that. Really good nuggets of advice there and wisdom. And just thank you so much for your time. And thank you for sharing with us. And we wish you all the best in the rest of your journey with George at Asda. And we can't wait to see your phenomenal campaigns that are coming up.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.